Hello, everybody, and
what up?
Welcome.
It's your bears. Your bears are back again.
It's good to be here.
It is good to be here. It's sleepy to be here.
It is sleepy to be here. We were up late.
We were up very late on a school night. I hadn't worked it. You were clever because you took the day off, and you saw it again.
Well, no, I think you were clever. You were at work, and so got to just mentally check out and do whatever. I had to be alert because I went and saw The Last Jedi again.
So last night we kicked it off with an 8 p.m. showing of Force Awakens, which I'm really glad we did actually, and then we saw the midnight, or should I say 12:01 of Last Jedi. Now we haven't spoken about this at all. That's part of our rules of the show, so I can't wait to talk to you about this movie.
You were trying to get me to do like a
I tried to get you to do a thumbs up, thumbs down.
The Emperor from Gladiator, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Now we should just say that, obviously this is a film discussion show. We are going to discuss the movie. There are going to be spoilers.
Yeah, so there's nowhere to go into any kind of in-depth discussion about this
without talking about what happens. So it's impossible.
If you're like me, then you wouldn't be listening or reading anything before you've seen it anyway, because spoiler-free reviews, I didn't want to see anything.
No, yeah, I mentioned this to you the other day. I've stopped watching trailers. I'll only watch a trailer if it's in the cinemas before the movie. I won't look at them online anymore. So if you don't want to know anything, just pause this, go away. Go watch the movie, come back, listen to it, rate us 5 stars. That's the order.
It's that simple.
That's the order in which to do things today. So, all right, should we just launch right in?
We should, because I'm very keen to know what you think.
Me too. All right. How should we start this? Let's start by talking about our viewing of Force Awakens, because I'm really glad we did that first, because it led me straight into this with a fresh mind. I saw Force Awakens 7 times in the cinemas, but I haven't watched it since. So I was really glad to just see that front up. And for me, there were a couple of big takeaways from that really got me excited for Last Jedi. I wanted to know more about Finn. Finn, to me, is the most interesting character. I know there's been a lot of talk about Rey, what's Rey's heritage. Rey I find a little bit dull, because, I feel like I know what's going to happen with Rey, or I thought I did. Finn, I'm like, so from the very first scene in Force Awakens, I'm like, why did he have this awakening? Because he's never had these rebellious acts befole. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, he kind of just wakes up and decides, no. I wanted to know more about him.
And you do, if you're like deep into Star Wars lore and you read everything and whatever, there is background information about Finn out there.
Right.
I've never really gone too deep into it. I used to, in high school, I read every Star Wars book that came out.
When you were head of the chess club and
I did like chess.
And you played your saxophone to impress the ladies.
So if you do want to know things about Finn and other people who are in The Force Awakens, that information does exist out there.
Right, okay.
But if you've just seen the film, not so much.
Yeah. The other thing, obviously, Snoke. There's been a lot of talk over the last couple of years about who is Snoke, what is his story, what's going on
with Snoke. Is he
Snoke.
Darth Plagueis? How old is he? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, the fan theories floating around over the past 2 years since The Force Awakens came out. There's a fan theory for every sweaty geek on this earth.
Absolutely.
And that's a lot.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
A lot of them were in the movie theater last night.
Yeah.
I could smell it.
The other characters that we were kind of introduced to in Force Awakens, like I said, Rey, I kind of wasn't too interested in. Kylo, I think, is a fantastic character, but again, I didn't think there was too much mystery there. Like, that was all kind of covered in Force Awakens. I was really interested in Greg Grunberg, who is J.J. Abrams'
who, unfortunately,
with
this being directed by Rian Johnson,
didn't make an appearance, which I guess just goes to show that he literally will only get work if J.J. Abrams directs.
Yeah.
So, poor Greg Grunberg.
A single tear.
So they're the kind of things that I was kind of looking forward to. I was also hoping to see a little bit more movement forward with Star Wars, because to me, I guess, the original trilogy obviously were their own movies. The prequels, sadly, I felt only had a level of interest in the sense of looking forward at 4, 5, and 6. And episode 7, while I really enjoyed it, a lot of the interest was in looking back at 4, 5, and 6. So I was really hoping that with Last Jedi, we'd get to actually see some movement forward and get to see something different in this universe. What were you kind of looking for in Last Jedi?
One of the things that I thought was going to be interesting with The Last Jedi was really just in terms of just in terms of the storytelling, is that in every other Star Wars, and this is not including Rogue One, but in the saga films, there's tended to be a gap of at least a year between every episode.
That's true.
Whereas from how Force Awakens ended, we knew that Last Jedi had to just pick up right from the events of The Force Awakens. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that felt non-Star Warsy to me. And it wasn't a problem for me at all, actually.
Well, I guess let's just jump straight into tone then. Before we get into plot and events and all that kind of stuff, did this feel like a Star Wars movie to you?
It did.
Because to me, I have mixed feelings. It did and it didn't. I was almost like, are we meant to be watching a Marvel movie right now? There were a lot of quips in this movie.
The things that felt Marvelish to me were the humour, mostly the attempts at humour.
Yeah,
and some of them land. Some of them actually
the word attempts, because some of them didn't land, and some of them did.
Some of them did. Some of them really didn't. Yes. And some of them were okay, but I was like, that should be in the next Avengers film. Yeah,
and that was my problem with it. Because this is the trailer that we got for this movie is one of the best trailers I've ever seen for a movie ever.
I agree.
And then the movie that we got delivered, while I enjoyed it, in some ways, I think as a whole, the trailer was a better experience. Yeah.
And we should point it out that we're kids of a certain generation.
Yeah, who grew up with Star Wars.
Yeah. And the relationship we have with Star Wars means that on the one hand, we're programmed to enjoy it.
That's the thing.
But on the other hand, we will find things that are wrong, which would not be a problem for us if it was a film that didn't have Star Wars in front of it.
Exactly. Yeah. If this was Valerian, what blah blah of 1,000 planets, I would have loved the shit out of it. Like, there were a lot of wonderful moments in this, and this is the problem. I feel that this movie is not as good as the sum of its parts. I feel like
I agree.
There are moments in this movie that are absolutely brilliant.
There are moments of brilliance.
But as a whole, watching this movie as a movie, I felt let down. I'm really a little bit surprised by some of the... There are reviews saying that this knocks Force Awakens out of the water. And I'm a little bit surprised by that mentality, because I understand that, when Force Awakens came out, maybe it is just the member berries. Like, maybe they did rely a little bit too much on fan service. But at the end of the day, I still felt like it was a movie.
Yeah. See, Force Awakens, and I loved Force Awakens. I think it's such an enjoyable film.
Yeah.
And I would have liked it if the nostalgia factor was pulled back
a little bit.
But I had absolutely no beef with Lucasfilm going, okay, we know there's a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths from the prequels.
Yeah.
You know what? Here, have a Star Wars film.
And I guess here's the problem for me, is that Force Awakens, I felt happily fit in with that original trilogy. This one, Last Jedi, is lower than those 4 films for me. It's lower than the original trilogy and Force Awakens. It's definitely not a prequel. Like, it's better than those 3. And but I was my expectations, I think, were way too high, because I was hoping for Empire Strikes Back.
We had talked about this before, the fact that we knew that it was wrong and silly,
yeah.
but we also couldn't help it, is that we went into this expecting something that was going to go toe-to-toe with Empire Strikes Back as the best Star Wars film.
Yeah. So you've seen it twice now.
I have.
Did you have a more after your expectations weren't as high, did you enjoy it more the second
time? I liked it more today.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, without that burden of expectation that, the midnight screening is the first time you've seen it. It's not just going to the movies, it's kind of an event. Without all that baggage, I liked the film more today than I did, well, also today, but earlier on today.
Yeah.
Getting back to what you were saying about whether it fits in style-wise and everything, they are kind of Lucasfilm, this is, are damned if they do and damned if they don't. When they do something that's clearly identifiably another Star Wars film, they get slapped with...
Yeah, just rebooting.
You just made the same thing again,
which is what happened with Force Awakens. Everyone was like, "Oh, you've just remade."
Exactly, but then any kind of departure from that,
it's like, this isn't a Star Wars film. We want Star Wars.
Yeah, what are you doing?
We came here for this, and that's not what you delivered. Yeah,
it's. I mean, they're just stuffed either way.
It's true. It's true. It's because of the amount of love for this franchise. It's
Yeah.
like people love Star Wars, probably more than any other franchise in the world. Like, people...
Oh, what about modern
obsessed
DC?
Look, I don't think this will win an Academy Award, unlike Suicide
Squad. In Force Awakens, we got Harrison Ford's last entry into a Star Wars film.
Yeah.
This time around, sadly, we knew it was going to be Carrie Fisher's last time in a Star Wars film.
Although, we did not see her last moment. Or did we? What I mean, okay, let's reiterate there are going to be spoilers here. Princess Leia does not die in this movie.
No.
Which I was super surprised by.
Which we knew, because they'd already said Force Awakens was Harrison Ford heavy,
Yeah.
Last Jedi will be Mark Hamill heavy, and Episode 9 will be Carrie Fisher heavy.
Yes. Obviously, though, plans have changed. How do they now reconcile that?
I have absolutely no idea.
Because early on in the film, there's a moment where you're led to believe that she's dead. And I think a lot of people in the audience went, oh, this is it. And then she does this very strange... So if you haven't seen the movie...
love it.
No, I don't think anybody did. If you haven't seen the movie, what happens is she's basically blasted out into space.
She has a Mary Poppins moment in outer space.
Yeah, it's like, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. Like, you know, she just kind of... She's kind of dead. She's frozen, but she kind of starts grabbing the air and walking back into the spaceship.
I called bullshit on that scene.
And the thing for me is that the rest of the movie would have remained the same without her in it. There was kind of no need to bring... I don't understand why they...
I did really like some of the moments she had later on in the film.
Like
with
I said, I'm glad
with
that
both
she
Poe
was there.
and with Laura Dern's character.
I'm glad that she was there, but was it necessary? Because now, how do you bow her out of these films? Do we begin the next film with her funeral?
The crawl of the next film is...
Yeah, it just says Princess Leia has
died.
Passed, and
I
we
have
just
no idea.
Never, I feel like it was a really missed opportunity, given that they had filmed what looked like a death scene, to not actually use it as a death scene.
Let's talk about Luke for
a
bit. It's out there with that Mark Hamill had said when he first read the script from Rian Johnson that he fundamentally disagreed with the direction that Rian Johnson had taken Luke.
Right. I actually hadn't heard that because, I stay away from kind of spoilers.
Yeah, so and I think the script may have changed a little bit from the one he read, but eventually Hamill did kind of come round to what Rian Johnson wanted to do with the character. Right. What did you think of Luke?
I didn't actually have too much of a problem with that. I felt like that was kind of fitting for what Luke's been through, what he's experienced. I felt like he probably would. So again, spoilers. It's not that he turns on the Jedi, but he kind of decides that it's time for the Jedi to end. And I think given that, his experience with Darth Vader, his experience now with Kylo Ren, I think he's just starting to see how fickle it can be and how dangerous it is to keep that going. So I didn't really have a problem with that.
Yeah, and some of what Luke says feeds into something that makes this... It really is kind of a Star Wars for this moment in time, where Luke is saying that fundamentally being this way, even if it's the light,
there's a gray
just
area.
Being fundamentally that way and having blind faith in anything
is almost as bad as going to the dark side. Yeah, there's a middle area, and that's where most people live, and there's nothing wrong with that.
So we've got a bunch of new characters in this film.
Yeah,
one of which I really love, Rose.
I liked Rose a lot, and it's such a shame that I feel like their entire storyline could be cut. That casino... Are we watching Star Wars or are we watching Harry Potter? That was bad.
I wasn't into the casino.
That was bad. And their entire plot affects nothing. It affects nothing. And it's such a shame because I'm the same. I really liked Rose right from the moment we met her.
Yeah, and her opening scene with Finn is fantastic.
Yes, and I thought her and Finn had wonderful chemistry, and it's such a shame that what they did was nothing. And I love Poe as well. In the second half of this film, he's just Mr. Exposition. He just does very little.
I'm still on board with Poe in the second half because Poe gets something in this film that you don't get a lot in a Star Wars film, which is he has actual character development. And I think a bunch of the stuff for Poe in this film is setting him up for 9.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's probably fair.
Poe is still my favourite. I know we're jumping all over the shop here, but we're both pretty tired and we're very excited because it's Star Wars. But
yeah.
I think I'm right in saying that we were on the same page going into this, that we didn't want Rey
that's right.
to be anyone's daughter.
Yes, because obviously, it's so heavily hinted at that, she's a Skywalker, which is so... And again, though, this takes us back to that you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, at the end of the day, Star Wars has always been about the Skywalkers. So do you think that they knew when they made Force Awakens whether she was or she wasn't?
I don't, actually.
I don't believe they did. I think that they waited for fan feedback.
So do you believe what we heard in The Last Jedi?
So again, spoilers, what we heard is that her parents are nobodies. They were just junk traders.
Thank the Lord. It's a big galaxy. Not everyone has to be related.
I do believe it. Yeah, I do. Well, I mean,
I'm going to choose to believe it.
I want to believe. And that was a great moment. I guess...
Yeah, that was actually a really good scene. So it's her and Ben Solo talking when that comes up. And their dynamic in this film totally works for me.
It's wonderful. So, all right, what they did with Rey and Ben Solo, and I'm going to use Ben Solo because very early on in the film, Kylo Ren smashes his helmet, and for the rest of the film, he's just straight up Adam Driver, who, again, is brilliant in this movie.
Yeah, just quietly, Adam Driver can act.
Oh, he can. There's this wonderful thing in this film where Rey and Ben have become linked through the Force and can kind of communicate with each other and, to a certain extent, see each other's environments. That really worked for me. Again, at first I was like, this is Harry Potter. This is Rey a Horcrux?
I don't understand the reference.
If you knew Harry Potter, I think you'd know what I was saying. So at first I thought it was a little bit derivative and strange, but it very much grew on me through the way it was done. I thought it was really good and effective, a good way for the story to be told.
Yeah, I was totally into their dynamic. Snoke. Snoke is someone who I was worried about. I was always going to just be like, okay, I'm going to hold my fire on Snoke until Episode 8 comes out. I
think he looked good.
I'm on board with Snoke. I was into the look worked for me, and as played by its motion capture, so obviously it's Andy Serkis.
Yeah, who is, again, a great actor.
I really liked Snoke.
I still feel like we learned nothing about Snoke. From the start of Force Awakens to the end of Last Jedi, we have zero information on Snoke. And I don't even, again, it's not like I care about his lineage or who he is.
Exactly, because if he was a Bond villain, we wouldn't care. It's just because it's Star Wars.
But I want to know the why and the how,
which we still might.
Maybe, but spoilers, he's dead.
So that is the moment, that scene in the film is great. And it is from that point in this film
that things pick up and get
that good. The film totally works for me, which is roughly, I imagine it's about the last 45 minutes.
I'd say it's the last third of this film for sure, yeah.
And from that scene onwards, I really like this film, which is the complete opposite of Force Awakens, where I think the first 45 minutes is clearly the strongest part.
Yeah, I mean, the death of Snoke was done very, very well.
It was a cool scene.
There was some cool... And this is, I guess, what comes back to what I was saying at the start, where there were a lot of great scenes in this movie. I just feel like, as a whole, it didn't really have a good flow to it. But, yeah, from that point on... So after that, we got that amazing fight with the Royal Guards.
That's cool.
And, I mean, cinematography-wise, this was a beautiful, beautiful scene. So that, the guards, they wear these metallic red outfits.
That are reminiscent of the Emperor's guards.
And this room that they're in is almost entirely red.
It's
and
great
visually,
set piece.
It's just beautiful. It looks amazing. And Ben Solo and Rey actually fight together. So Ben Solo kills Snoke, and we're left with this kind of, he's turned. He's a good guy now.
And then he realizes that the throne's now empty.
He's in that grey area again, which I think is a pretty important part of this film, is this grey area between light and dark.
I continue to enjoy the dynamic between Ben Solo and General Hux, who from The Force Awakens...
Hux in this film too.
Like in Episode 7, they kind of had this bickering sibling type thing going on. They were both after Daddy's approval.
Yeah.
And that continues into this film, and...
in a better way, I think.
I dig it. I dig those two.
In fact, the opening scene of this film was one of the few times that the humour really landed for me, was with Hux.
Yeah, see, I did think that was funny, but I was also like, this should be... It just didn't feel...
Star
Warsy to me.
Yeah, which for an opening scene is tough.
So as we were saying, Snoke's kind of throne room is a great set piece. Last Jedi kind of moves away from something they'd made a big effort to do with Force Awakens,
which is practical
effects. Everything was going to be practical was like the buzzword around
Yes.
Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Not so much with Last Jedi. We are more CG. I mean, obviously, Force Awakens is a massively CG
there's still
film,
a lot of CG. Yeah.
but they don't lean on the practical stuff as much in The Last Jedi. And there's a couple of scenes, like when the escape scene from the casino.
Again,
that sucks.
But the casino I could have done entirely without.
Yeah, and it also, that's where we meet
Benicio del Toro.
Benicio del Toro, who I was like, when I found out that Del Toro was going to be in a Star Wars film,
I didn't know he was going to be in this.
I lost my shit. I freaking love Benicio del Toro.
He's great.
And I was
underwhelmed.
I suppose I was essentially probably kind of hoping for his character from Sicario to just get planted into the Star Wars.
I was really disappointed.
And it was a letdown.
Both the character and the acting. I love Benicio del Toro, but I felt like he was just kind of...
Speaking of things that I could do without, you'd asked me going in what I thought of the space hamsters, the porgs.
The porgs.
Fuck the porgs.
Yeah.
Fuck them right off.
There was actually a lot more porg in this than I thought there was going to be.
They're the pits.
There are moments where I don't mind. The moment with Chewbacca roasting one is kind of cute.
Yeah, it would have been good if he'd then actually eaten it rather than going, oh, you poor bird.
Yeah, see, but there's a lot of very strange kind of animal cruelty messages thrown in this film. Did you find that as well?
That's a good point, actually.
Like, because... So Chewie basically becomes a vegetarian after looking at these porgs.
This swears off me.
He pretty much
Chewie
does.
is, for episode 9, Chewie's raw vegan.
Yeah, and then there are those weird kind of horse things as well.
That are getting whipped to shit. Going into some more things that we didn't know about going in, I always thought it was going to be very hard to do this film without having a Force ghost of any kind. Because just why wouldn't one be hanging around with Luke?
And we did get a Force ghost.
We did. We get Yoda.
Yeah. Now, actually, going back to what you were saying before about practical effects, was Yoda a puppet again? He looked very puppety. So if it wasn't...
I don't think it was.
If it wasn't a puppet, I think they very much upped their CG game since the prequels. Of course they have.
I think he was... Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
He looked much more puppety. He also, though, didn't look very ghosty. I felt like he was a little bit too tactile and solid.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, because having watched... I mean, I watched Empire last week in my Star Wars binging before this, and when you see Obi-Wan on Dagobah in both Empire and Jedi, you know,
Force Ghost has a very particular look.
Yeah, and he's very translucent.
Yeah,
and stuff. He's pretty there, isn't he?
He was very tactile, very solid. From memory, did they even touch it one point?
He whacks him with his stick.
Yeah, which
I was like, I kind of called bullshit on that.
Is that just because Yoda is so powerful?
Yeah.
And then speaking of Force Ghost, we did see something that, from memory, I don't think we've seen in a Star Wars film before, and that's astral projection. So the final scene, Luke has quite a large battle with Ben Solo. He's not actually there.
He's not there. But he also doesn't touch him.
He doesn't touch him, but have we seen this in the past?
No.
No. So again, that was kind of a new Force power that we're just being introduced to, is that he can...
Hamill's great in that scene.
I mean, he's great throughout the
As
whole
is the
movie.
music. I mean, okay, it's... You don't even have to say it, do you? The music's pretty good in this film. Like, no shit.
Yeah, I mean, when I was making notes, I didn't even bother writing down about the music because...
Spoiler alert, John Williams is good at his job. I mean, the music cues and everything in that confrontation, it's good.
Yes,
it's really good.
And the little throwbacks that John Williams uses as well to his previous films and scores is just beautiful.
He's pretty good.
Like, it's designed to make you emotive, and it very much works.
I have one thing that I was really hanging out for that I didn't get. Which I'd said to you. I was just... So much of me wanted to lose my shit when Luke ignited the green lightsaber for the first time.
Now, because
it doesn't happen.
What happened was it was a blue one. But
when he's doing the projection thing, he's holding Anakin's lightsaber.
But can we just point out, though, that wasn't Anakin's lightsaber?
No, but that's just part of the projection thing he's doing.
Because I did not like that. Because was that just to kind of piss Kylo off because it's like, look, I've got the lightsaber that you wanted?
Yeah, or is it to not be using the lightsaber that he...
The lightsaber, we should mention, gets destroyed in this film.
Yeah, Rey still got it, but it's in two.
But it's in two pieces. So...
And the Kyber crystal's intact, though, so she could, just get a welder on it.
I guess,
BB-8 can just...
But, when he pulled that lightsaber out, I was a bit like... Why not the green one? Now, speaking of this kind of final scene where Luke is astral projectioning...
I think just projecting.
English is hard. I've been awake a very long time.
That's true.
And I don't drink coffee. I did have a root beer today.
You are a sick puppy.
Do you think, especially after a second viewing, that Luke is dead?
Yeah, Luke's dead.
How did he die?
Because,
spoilers again if you haven't seen it, but what...
we already said it.
What happens is that he fades away.
He fades away and vanishes in the manner that you do when you become a Force ghost.
Yeah, but what killed him? Was it the
it
exertion
was,
of the astral projection?
That's my assumption, is that the exertion of that projection just took such a toll that he's dead. Or maybe they went back to the prequels and he lost the will to live.
Yeah,
like Padme, worst mother ever.
I was a little bit sad that that's the last we get of Luke.
It's nice. It's a nice shot, though.
It's a beautiful shot. Oh, I mean, look, if we're going to talk about shots for a second, that moment when the Rebel cruiser drives through...
Oh, that's cool.
And just explodes that ship. And speaking of score, complete silence for that moment. That, I think, is one of the most beautiful things ever put to film. And obviously not real film. The whole shot is CGI. But it was stunning. Like, that moment was amazing. Are you going to see it again? We both saw Force Awakens. I mean, how many times did you see it in the cinemas?
I think I saw it 6 times.
Yeah, I saw it 7. Are you going to see this again?
I'll probably give it a few weeks and clock up a third viewing.
I'll probably see it once more, just to kind of give myself a bit of breathing space, finalize my thoughts.
Yeah, so I like the movie, and I'm really happy that they were willing to give Rian Johnson the scope to do something a bit different. And, like, it's not wildly different. It's not an out-there film.
No, it's still, But I guess I am surprised, though, that they're... Like, because obviously the studio loved it. Because if you don't know, they've given Rian Johnson his own trilogy.
Yeah.
I don't know, are you a bit... After seeing this movie, are you surprised at how positive the reaction has been by the studio?
A little bit. And I wouldn't say it's way out of whack with my own reaction, but I think that Lucasfilm probably like this film more than I do.
Have you thought about a rating?
Yeah, I'm sitting on a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm probably around the same.
I like it.
I don't know. I really need to see it again. I'm somewhere between a 6 and an 8. There are moments of this movie that hit an 8.
Oh, I think there's 9.5 in this film.
There are moments of this movie that hit a 5. And I'm trying to reconcile what the movie as a whole gets from me, and it's really hard to kind of balance that out because, as I said, as much as I love moments, I wasn't sure it worked as a whole, and so I'll probably end up around a 7. All
right, so for all you other fellow sweaties out there, at least like in the Northern Hemisphere, at least you get to go to a cinema in the cold, where everyone's not sitting in a pool of their own sweat like we are in Australia.
Even at midnight last night, it was over 30.
Oh, it was gross.
And that's Celsius for you people up there who do your temperatures wrong.
32 degrees is not actually freezing.
No, it's very, very hot.
Also, get with the program.
All right, well, if you liked this, feel free to give us a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you can rate podcasts.
I hope you liked Star Wars.
I hope you liked it too. I hope that I hope most people liked it more than I did, and I hope I like it more on my second viewing. I'm going to blame midnight.
Do it.
So, gotchas.